Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper, beginning with more voices against Lakshadweep changes, relevant for GS Paper 1, social issues, as well as GS Paper 2, related to polity and governance. Now, there is some tension, public anger. It has been simmering in the Lakshadweep Islands over a number of controversial proposals floated by the administrator of the Union Territory. This is something we have discussed in the past as well, but let me briefly summarize what the controversy is all about. And after that, you should not read any newspaper article related to the Lakshadweep controversy unless and until there is a drastic change introduced by the administration. The proposal number one is related to beef ban or cow slaughter. There is an order from the administration which seeks to ban the slaughter of cow, calf, bull, and buffalo without a certificate from a competent authority. It also prohibits the sale, transport, and storage of beef and beef products. The residents are protesting because they view that it is an attack on their culture, it is an attack on their eating habits. Then there is something related to the two-child norm. What is this two-child policy? Under the draft Panchayat Regulation Rules 2021, there is this policy of the Union Territory Administration. The administration wants to bar people with more than two children from becoming a member of the Gram Panchayat. The protesters say that this would tear apart their traditional methods of decision making based on democratic decentralization. There is another controversial proposal related to liquor shops. Controversial for the local population, which may not be controversial for others. The administration has decided that we will allow liquor to be served at resorts on inhabited islands. Currently, there is a prohibition in place on all inhabited islands. Liquor is being served only at resorts on the uninhabited island. Then there is this issue of land acquisition powers. The administration has brought in a draft, Lakshadweep Development Authority Regulation 2021, according to which this authority will oversee development of towns on the islands. The government says that we want to develop Lakshadweep on the pattern of Maldives, but the local residents, they have protested against it. They're saying that this was prepared and pushed through without any consultation. They fear that the large infrastructure and tourism projects can destabilize the ecology, the fragile ecology of the island. And it will also lead to a situation where ST residents, scheduled tribe residents, they will be removed from their lands. Because if you look at the demography of Lakshadweep, it has the highest population share of Muslims, close to 96%. And scheduled tribes are close to 94.8% in the Union Territory. Then there is this anti-Gunda regulation. Lakshadweep is relatively crime-free, and that is why locals are protesting. That despite the fact that we are relatively crime-free, why are you bringing this anti-Gunda regulation? According to which the authorities can detain a person for up to 1 year, so that we can prevent this individual from acting in any manner which is prejudicial to the maintenance of law and order. These rules, they allow detention of anti-social elements for up to 1 year, that too without any legal representation. That is why more and more voices are being raised against these Lakshadweep changes. That is all that you need to know from this newspaper article. Now let's look at another newspaper article from today's The Hindu newspaper, again relevant for your GS paper 2. Midday meals in schools has had a long history in India. The year was 1925 when a midday meal program was introduced for disadvantaged children in Madras. By the mid-1980s, there were 3 states such as Gujarat, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, also a union territory, Puducherry. What they did, they used their own resources. They used their own money to provide cooked midday meal to children till the 5th standard, till the primary stage of education. Then more and more states joined. Then came August 1995. A program was launched, National Program of Nutritional Support to Primary Education. What was the purpose? Let's ensure that more and more students, they are enrolled in the schools. More and more school children, they are retained as well, so that the retention of the school children is increased. And we have to also ensure that these children not only are enrolled, but they are also attending the classes regularly. And at the same time, we should do something to improve the nutritional standard of the children. So the year was 1995. This program was launched. Why? What was the objective? The objective was to ensure that more and more students are enrolled in the schools. They are retained as well. They attend the schools as well. And at the same time, we should do something to improve, enhance the nutritional standard of these children. And that is why food grains were given to the children. For example, 100 grams per child under this program launched in the year 1995. Then the year was 2004. The scheme was revised. Instead of providing 100 grams of food grains, the scheme was revised to provide cooked midday meal. That too, the children belonging to class 1 to class 5. 300 calories of food, cooked food was to be provided to the children, and at the same time 8 to 12 grams of protein was also to be provided. The year was 2007. The scheme was extended now. Initially it covered students belonging to standard 1 to standard 5. Now the scheme was extended to cover students belonging to standard 6 to standard 8 as well. And in the year 2009, more changes were introduced. Changes such as pulses were provided, 30 grams per student per day, vegetables, 75 grams per student per day. Another significant change was that we should decrease the quantity of oil and fat. Previously, we were giving 10 gram of oil and fat to the students. Now it should be reduced to 7.5 grams. This was to ensure balanced and nutritional diet to the children. But the important thing was the cooking cost. The largest component of this midday meal scheme is the cooking cost. And what is this cooking cost? It covers the prices of ingredients such as pulses, vegetables, cooking oil, salt. The government said in 2011 that this cooking cost will be revised by 7.5% every financial year beginning 2011. That means from 2011 onwards, this cooking cost will be revised by 7.5% every financial year. And now it is this cooking cost which the central government is now deciding to directly transfer to the students. 100 rupees per child is to be given to the students through direct benefit transfer. And this is going to be a one-time payment. And this 100 rupees per child, this money will come from this cooking cost component of the midday meal scheme. That is what you need to understand from this newspaper article. Now let's look at a column in today's The Hindu newspaper, Democracy at Stake in Nepal. Prime Minister KP Oli has persuaded the President Bandari to dissolve parliament and call for fresh elections. And these fresh elections will now be held on November 12 and 19. That is, unless the Supreme Court decides to declare the dissolution of Parliament as unconstitutional. Remember, Supreme Court did this in February this year when it declared that dissolution of Parliament was unconstitutional, because the same Prime Minister had persuaded the President to dissolve the Parliament in December 2020 as well. And now the Prime Minister has persuaded the President Bandari to dissolve the Parliament again and call for the fresh elections. So there is some sort of a musical chair, the game of musical chair on Nepal's political stage. This musical chair is continuing. This is something again we have discussed in the past. But what should be India's reaction to this? How should India deal and engage with Nepal? Because engagement is one thing, intervention is another. India must engage with Nepal without intervening. Number one, you would recall that Nepal was a monarchy. Then there was a democratic transition in Nepal. The monarchy in Nepal has always tried to distance Nepal from India. And it has tried to promote nationalism, which takes hostility to India as its main driver. So abolition of monarchy was a good thing for India. And the government of India must firmly and unambiguously declare that it does not support the revival of monarchy in Nepal, because there are some criticisms, there are some concerns, and there are some accusations. For example, the accusation leveled by the former Prime Minister of Nepal as well in this article. According to this article, the RSS, the government of India, is trying to revive monarchy in Nepal. The accusation is that the government of India and other agencies of the state, they want to restore the old Hindu monarchical state in Nepal. So one thing that government of India should do, it should side with the people of Nepal because they are one democracy after a long and bitter struggle. India should declare that it's unconditionally supporting Nepal's republican democracy. Number two, India should remain fully engaged with Nepal at all levels. Because if India walks away, the hands of policy of India, what it will do, it will create space for other countries such as China. And then if Nepal again comes under the influence of China, then Nepal will also be hostile to India. And this we have seen in the recent past. There was controversy because of constitutional amendments in Nepal. They've also included some of India's territories and they're claiming these territories as their own. For example, Kalapani. Initially, KP Oli, he won the mandate in Nepal on anti-India plank because he viewed himself, he portrayed himself as somebody who is anti-India. And now there are critics who say that KP Oli is basically very close to New Delhi and he is like an agent of New Delhi. This is where the third important thing that comes into picture. What the government of India should not do, it should not be seen as partisan. It should not support one political party as against the other or one candidate as against the other. It should side with the people of Nepal rather than various political parties. These are some of the options that should be explored by the government of India, according to former diplomat Shyam Saran. Shyam Saran also was India's diplomat to Nepal as well. Now let's look at a very beautiful column written by former member of the erstwhile Planning Commission, Mr. Arun Maira. Mr. Maira writes, capitalism needs an upgrade. For example, capitalists like vaccine manufacturers, why do they invest so much money on research and development? Their ultimate aim is to make profit. Their ultimate aim is to give good returns to those who have invested money in their companies. So when they invest a lot to attract best talent, give them huge salaries, provide state-of-the-art labs for research, and then invent and manufacture vaccines, naturally they will have to recover these costs. And at the same time, they have to generate profit. Why? So that this profit can be used to fund other researchers, to invent cure for other diseases as well. But what if the cost of this vaccine is too high and cannot be afforded by the poor? Capitalists say that they're not morally obliged to reduce the prices because they have to recover the costs. They cannot be at the loss. This is where the governments have to step in. But then the governments will have to buy these vaccines at a cost determined by these capitalists, determined by these private manufacturers, and then distribute these vaccines to the poor. For that, the governments, they need revenue. But where is this revenue going to come from? This revenue will come from the taxes that the governments will impose on these private manufacturers. But then these private players, what do they also do? They plead before the governments that please reduce the prices, cut the taxes so that they can recover their costs. Then what's the way forward? One is let the government manufacture vaccines. But then we say in capitalism, the government has no business to be in the business. Then what is the other way out? The other way out is what we call compulsory licensing. Government can demand that these vaccine manufacturers, what they do, they allow others to produce these vaccines in case there is an emergency. And this is something that India and South Africa, they want. But then some big private players, also Bill Gates Foundation, they are against this. So what next? Just like virus mutates, Arun Maira writes that capitalism also has to change. COVID-19 is not going to end capitalism, but companies must have to rethink the purpose of their existence. They have to be more humane. When humans survive, only then they can be in a position to make profit. So humanity matters. Capitalism needs an upgrade, according to Arun Maira. Now let's look at the practice questions. Two practice questions. Write the answers to these questions in 200 words. Number one, India should remain fully engaged with Nepal at all levels and across the political spectrum. The safeguarding of India's vital interests demands such sustained engagement. A hands off policy will only create space for other external influences, some of which, like China, may prove to be hostile. Discuss. And question number two, the midday meal scheme is a hugely popular scheme that has already shown a lot of potential. It is imperative to strengthen it by making further investments towards improved quality. Comment. That is it from our newspaper analysis for today. Thank you for being with us. Have a great evening.